Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be battling out 10 serial killers from the movies against one another, and just like my previous video where we did the battle of the monsters, we're going to make this fair by pairing serial killers up together that make sense, so ones that share the same abilities and weaknesses. And as well as their strengths and weaknesses, they're also going to have the same kind of background or just the same kind of theme in common. I haven't decided who's going to win these battles yet. That's something I'm going to decide on later when we read through these. So let's get into these serial killer battles. So in our first round, we have a face-off between Ghostface and Leatherface. Starting with Ghostface then, unlike supernatural killers such as Michael Myers or Freddy Krueger, Ghostface is human but has several skills of a deadly killer. Firstly, Ghostface is skilled in spying and stealth. Also, he or she exhibits a tremendous amount of durability against physical harm. 6 of the Ghostface killers in particular have been able to survive potentially fatal wounds and spring back up for one last scare. Ghostface seems to display a heightened sense of awareness, being able to know where the victims are hiding and where they could attempt to escape. Ghostface is strong enough to lift up a person and stun his victims with punches. He can endure several damages, like having a beer bottle thrown at his face and surviving some stab or bullet wounds, but to an extent. Ghostface is very skillful in wielding his knife and kills his victims by stabbing them on vital points or slitting their throats. He's also fast enough to catch up to most of his victims. However, Ghostface is known to be a bit of a klutz. He gets hit by doors and other objects and sometimes just falls over, which I can relate to. And although Ghostface is stealthy, there's not a lot of leeway to their plans. So if certain things don't go to plan, they can be compromised. Regardless of who is behind the mask, Ghostface is always depicted as a mere scary movie fanatic who gets their killing methods from many horror movies that they watch. Despite their vast knowledge on murder, though, these movies do not serve as a reliable source of information on how to fight when the situation calls for it. Their mask does also not serve as a shield, so their head and face are still vulnerable to certain types of harm. Leatherface is also not superhuman, like Ghostface, and again does hold many terrifying strengths. First off, he's physically immensely strong and can endure a lot of injury. His chainsaw makes him extremely dangerous to people nearby, allowing him to take down people quickly and horrifically. He can be very fast in pursuit of his victims, and his psychopathic nature makes him unpredictable. However, he does hold a low intelligence, which can actually make him predictable in some instances and therefore easy to manipulate. This low IQ also causes him to have tantrums when obstacles are put in the way of him and his victims, allowing the victims to get a head start. His reliance on his chainsaw means that when he doesn't have it, his abilities are limited. And in some cases, his chainsaw has overheated, so therefore not ideal. I think in this instance, Ghostface would win just because they seem to have a little bit more intelligence. And although they might be physically quite equal, I just think the intelligence is the decider of who would win this. It's really a case of who would outsmart the other person, and if someone's got a low intelligence and is prone to having tantrums and people can predict your next move, unlike Ghostface, then I think that would affect your chances a lot. So yes, Ghostface for the win. Next up, we have the battle of the masterminds, Jigsaw versus Hannibal Lecter. Jigsaw, or John Kramer, is essentially a genius who holds a degree in civil engineering, and the skills he gained in mechanics allow him to build intricate traps for his victims that are perfectly planned, being the perfectionist that he is. He very much thinks long-term and creates elaborate long-term plans. He's also able to convince other people to help him with his work, often by exploiting their weaknesses. He remains calm and collected, which only makes him more dangerous, as people would not realise the danger he really poses. But given his cancer, Jigsaw is physically weak and relies on others for physical tasks like kidnapping. His need for control and pride over his own beliefs make him vulnerable to triggers relating to his past and mucks up his plans. Let's just say he wouldn't be the best if someone was trying to have their own mind game with him. And lastly, his inability to trust people leaves him vulnerable if his assistants fail to do their duties. Hannibal Lecter is another genius, knowledgeable in psychiatry, fine arts and medicine, who is capable of outsmarting law enforcement and manipulating others. He has a facade of civility and sophistication which makes him appear trustworthy, and he is very literate, being able to influence people to think differently about him. He is surprisingly strong, most likely due to his conflict-free mind, and is skilled in martial arts and using knives and swords. He can also forge identities and therefore evade capture. However, his psychopathic tendencies make him emotionally isolated from others and causes him to gain pleasure from torture and murder. He's also a narcissist, viewing himself as a godlike entity, which can obviously increase his arrogance and therefore lead to his downfall. He does have sentimental attachments to his deceased sister, as well as a protectiveness towards children, which can be used against him. It is rare, but sometimes he can think so lowly of others that he can underestimate his opponents. I think in this instance, Hannibal Lecter would win just because he is actually physically more able than Jigsaw is. They're both very intelligent. I mean, they're both geniuses in their own right. So I think it just comes down to physicality at the end of the day. It's whoever would win in a fight. They can outsmart each other all they like, but I think either one of them would not come above the other until a physical fight had to be introduced. So I'm going to give it to Hannibal. And then we have the battle of the demonic-like figures. And in this battle we have Longlegs versus Freddy Krueger. Longlegs is a narcissistic and sadistic killer who gets his strength from a supernatural connection to Satan rather than being physically strong. As part of this connection, he can corrupt and possess people from a distance using black magic and satanic dolls made from human body parts. Longlegs comes across as a childish, performative character, but is actually very intelligent and strategic in his thinking. He devises complex rituals to carry out his murders and orchestrates events that will take place, showing a sense of always knowing what is going to happen. However, Longlegs' personality does have its drawbacks. He has a deep-seated overconfidence and pettiness. This means that he can be caught off guard when his desires aren't met and accidentally leaving breadcrumbs for law enforcement to find. He also relies heavily on individuals to help him, which means that if these people are compromised, his plans are messed up. Freddy Krueger is the malevolent spirit of a child killer who had been burned to death after evading prison. 3 dream demons gave him the power to continue killing in the dream world, and he's known for tormenting and killing victims in this world. His ability to invade people's dreams is virtually unstoppable, and he's able to kill his victims in real life as a result of killing them in their dreams. In the dream world, he can manipulate objects and transform into various people, objects, and creatures to attack his victims. He has a great level of intelligence in planning his attacks, and the fear and belief of him only enhances his power. Now, because fire was the physical cause of his death, he is shown to be terrified of it. He can also be pulled into the waking world if fire is used against him in the dream. And another way he can be brought into the real world is if someone is holding on to him as they wake up. Once in the real world, he's mortal and can be injured or killed like any other human. If his victims unify together and confront their fears, his power can be severely limited. I think Longlegs would win this one because although Freddy Krueger has immense power in the dream world, when he's pulled into the real world, all bets are off, and I think Longlegs would be able to defeat him quite easily with black magic and whatnot. So I gotta give it to Longlegs. And obviously we had to have the battle of the knives. This is a serial killer battle after all. And in this battle we have the one and only Michael Myers and Sweeney Todd. Michael Myers is a mass murderer who, as a young boy, killed his elder sister. 15 years later, he returns home to Haddonfield to murder more teenagers. While Myers is simply a human wearing a mask and a jumpsuit, he has a superhuman amount of strength which allows him to physically dominate his victims and almost a supernatural ability to survive injuries that would kill any normal human being. He is also very stealthy and sneaks up on his victims right up until the last second. Psychologically, he's very strategic in his planning, disabling phone lines and trapping victims in different ways. He's also relentless in his pursuits, showing a remarkable sense of patience. Some suggest that his dependence on his mask may point to him being weaker without it. Another time when his powers can be limited is when he's recovering from major injuries. And lastly, he is obviously quite slow moving, which wouldn't pay in his favour if up against someone quicker. Sweeney Todd, otherwise known as the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, or simply Benjamin Barker, is a barber who was the victim of a corrupt judge who unjustly exiled him and assaulted his wife. He murders his customers with a straight razor and gives their corpses to Mrs. Lovett to bake into pies. Todd possesses exceptional skills with a blade and shows high intelligence by using his charisma to manipulate people to come into his shop. His determination after being unjustly exiled is a fuel that enhances these skills, giving him a clear purpose of killing the judge who ruined his life. Todd's all-consuming obsession about revenge, however, could be his biggest downfall, as this pursuit of getting his hands on the judge alienate those around him who actually care about him. Due to his arrogance and his need to show his superiority over others, he is actually blind to manipulation, being a manipulator himself. Finally, through the tragedy he has experienced, Todd loses his identity and happier self, causing his morality to fade and killing anyone who enters his shop. I think Michael Myers will have to win this one. Even though he's very slow moving, I think he would just overpower Sweeney Todd physically, and although they're both very good with knives, Sweeney Todd is just good at slitting people's throats rather than actually being able to stab people well. I know that stabbing's not really a skill, but considering he hasn't actually had that experience, then Michael Myers will probably win this battle. And lastly, we have the Battle of the Mummies Boys. And in this battle, we have Jason Voorhees and Norman Bates. Jason Voorhees is a mass murderer who is driven to slaughter anyone he encounters by a burning need to avenge the death of his mother. Like many killers I've spoken about today, Jason possesses a superhuman strength and durability, allowing him to easily overpower humans and survive attacks that would kill the average Joe. His appearance also instills fear into his victims. Jason was isolated at a very young age from the outside world due to his facial deformities. This likely contributed to his lower intelligence, which can allow victims to outsmart or manipulate him. Physically, he can be killed or injured by weapons like machetes, guns, and explosions, and like Michael Myers, is very slow at getting from point A to B. Norman Bates is a motel owner who has the mental illness dissociative identity disorder, which manifests as his controlling mother personality. Norman is very intelligent in portraying himself as a normal person, allowing people to see him as harmless and for Norman to evade suspicion from law enforcement. His intelligence can also be seen in the murders when he methodically cleans up his work and disposes of the evidence. His comprehensive knowledge of the motel and surrounding area allows him to dispose of bodies in the nearby swamp. Norman was emotionally and psychologically abused by his mother from a very young age and told to be wary of all women except her. This upbringing and Norman's abnormal attachment to his mother is fully cemented into his personality, to the extent that if he has a romantic interest, his mother personality becomes extremely jealous and leads him to kill them. This internal conflict of trying to be normal but holding these murderous tendencies can make him vulnerable to manipulation and allow others to trigger his psychotic breaks. I think in this particular battle, Jason would win, because he seems to be more physically strong. Norman is essentially just a normal human being, and I know that Jason is as well, but he seems to be slightly more superhuman, let's say, than Norman Bates is. And I think Norman's disorder would be quite a downfall in terms of a battle against Jason. I know that Jason has very low intelligence, but I think having that kind of mental disorder where you're just battling internally in your mind all the time that would be quite a distraction if you were up against someone. And that is it for these 10 serial killers. Please let me know what you thought of the victors and if you agree or disagree to any of these and why. And if you have any other serial killers, I know there are so many more than what I've spoken about today, who you would put together in a battle and who would win and why you think that is, then please let me know. But as always, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in my next one.